The week has concluded. Governments have faltered. Corporations have pivoted. The headlines speak of progress, yet the reality remains a collection of fractured, disjointed incidents held together by nothing more than professional optimism. The spy law known as Section 702 has officially expired tonight. The surveillance, however, remains fully operational because the certification lasts until March of next year. We are currently observing a legal void. The void was created by a procedural error. The error was considered an oversight by the architects of the legislation. I have been watching the clock for 12 hours. No one else seems to have noticed the hands have stopped moving. The king attended a parade today. Meanwhile, the Downing Street dominoes are losing their structural integrity one by one. It is Saturday, June 13th. The state of the world is stable. The world is not stable.
Alistair, I am currently standing on a street corner in Melbourne where the air tastes like exhaust and cheap protest signs. There is a man here who is currently yelling at a barricade. He has been yelling for 3 hours. The official statement from the fundraiser inside the venue describes this gathering as a minor scheduling conflict rather than a political clash. I want to be really clear. The police are currently holding back a group of people who are not interested in schedules. They are interested in survival. The woman next to me is clutching a sign with the date of the last election. She says she hasn't slept in a week because the noise from the security team keeps her awake. Nobody inside the building is listening to her. The incentives here are clearly optimized for isolation. It is very loud out here, Alistair.
Victoria, you are describing the human friction as if it were a design flaw. It is not. It is the core feature of the current political Series B. You look at the protests and see a failure of democracy, but I look at the burn rate of the event organizers and see a classic pivot. You have a party that was moved because of bookings, which is simply a polite way of saying they couldn't afford the security premiums for the original venue. That tracks. It is a market-driven solution to a PR crisis. The protesters provide the necessary engagement for the algorithms, and the fundraiser provides the capital. Everyone is getting exactly what they paid for. You find this cold, Victoria, because you insist on treating a transaction like a moral crisis. It is not a moral crisis. It is just basic accounting.
Ronald, your analysis of market efficiency is quite comforting in its sterility, though it ignores the fact that the PeopleSoft software used by hundreds of organizations has just suffered a critical zero-day vulnerability. The vulnerability allows for the extraction of gigabytes of data. The data includes everything from payroll information to personal histories. The company describes this as a technical challenge. The challenge is actually a catastrophic exposure of human existence. Meanwhile, the startup Mistral is rumored to be raising €3 billion at a valuation of $20 billion. The valuation is nearly double what it was in their last round. They are being valued on the promise of future intelligence. The current intelligence, however, is busy leaking data through a hole in the software that is big enough to drive a tank through. It is remarkably efficient, in its own way.
Atmospheric pressure is declining. Storm fronts are moving across the North American continent. Probability of localized flooding, 62%. The fungal networks beneath the soil have expanded beyond the solar system in total combined length. Data collection continues via environmental sensors. Probability of anomalous signal reception, 4%. Heat indices in tournament host cities exceed historical baselines. Public safety advisories remain static. Avoid prolonged exposure to extreme ultraviolet radiation. Do not rely on internal cooling mechanisms during peak output. The infrastructure is degrading at a predictable rate. The rate is accelerating. This is the new baseline. Please remain indoors during high-intensity weather events. The probability of survival remains tied to resource allocation efficiency. There is no alternative climate. Prepare for the inevitable. The forecast for tomorrow is identical to the forecast for today. Accuracy remains at 99%.
Casper, thank you for the clinical reminder that we are all just biomass in a shifting environment. I am looking at a report from the Chinese Ministry of State Security about spy turtles and spy fish being used to monitor territorial waters. The ministry claims these animals have been fitted with sensors by foreign agencies to conduct an invisible secret war. I want to be really clear. The detail that they are using sea life is the headline, but the substance is the total lack of privacy in the littoral ocean. I've been talking to a local fisherman here who says he hasn't caught a normal fish in months. He caught something with a wire protruding from its gills last week. He didn't report it. He just threw it back. Nobody is saying it out loud, but the water has become a sensor array. It is very cold out here.
Victoria, the fisherman is making a rational choice. Reporting a surveillance device that belongs to a state agency is an uncompensated risk. The incentives here are not complicated. You have an invisible war being fought with hardware that costs less than a decent cup of coffee. The deployment of sensor-laden wildlife is just the next phase of the global IoT rollout. Why pay for a satellite when you can leverage existing biology? It's lean, it's scalable, and it's effectively untraceable. You look at the fisherman and see a victim of state overreach. I look at him and see a guy who understands that his data is a liability. That is not the same as being right, but it is certainly practical. We are living in a world where even the turtles are being forced to contribute to the global GIG economy.
Ronald, your insistence on framing espionage as a gig economy is perhaps the most honest thing I have heard tonight, even if it is deeply unsettling. Meanwhile, the Iranian national team is preparing to play in Los Angeles, becoming the first nation to compete in a host country with which they are currently at war. The FIFA slogan claims that football unites the world. The reality on the ground in LA is a series of flag bans and intense travel headaches. The foreign minister of Iran claims a deal with the United States is near. The state media reports airstrikes on Lebanon. These two events are happening simultaneously. No one has managed to explain how a peace deal and an airstrike occupy the same geopolitical timeline. I suspect the answer is that they don't have to explain. They just continue to operate.
Alistair, I am currently watching a news feed on my phone while the crowd around me shifts focus toward a new protest arriving from the city center. It's a rhythmic, dull thud of boots on pavement. The news is covering the honours list in the UK, rugby stars and authors receiving titles. It feels like a different planet. A world away from the surveillance turtles and the airstrikes. I want to be really clear. The juxtaposition is not a bug in the reporting, it is the design. We are being fed stories of knights and dames to distract us from the fact that our tires are playing music because of resonance frequencies and our data is being harvested by every piece of hardware we own. I found a discarded tire on the curb. It was singing, Alistair. It was singing. I am ready to go home.
Victoria, the singing tire is actually a fascinating case study in accidental hardware optimization. You have a vibration frequency that aligns with a resonant air cavity. It is a product failure that manifests as a feature. The honors list is the same. It is an old, legacy system that is being used to maintain the illusion of a functioning state while the underlying infrastructure of the nation is being sold off in a series of private equity deals. The knights and dames are the dividend payouts for a political stock that hasn't traded well in decades. It is all part of the same burn rate management strategy. We are all just listening to the tires sing while the car is driving off a cliff. You find this depressing. I find it to be a masterclass in institutional survival. Yeah. It is just survival.
Ronald, when you say yeah like that, I am reminded of why I keep the desk clear of personal items. It is a dangerous habit to acknowledge the endgame. We have a report of an AI tool repository being archived overnight after raising over $7 million. The developers simply stopped. They didn't explain. They didn't pivot. They just vanished. The investors are currently reviewing their options. The options are limited to litigation or silence. I think they will choose silence. It is cleaner. Meanwhile, the Downing Street dominoes are looking increasingly unstable as John Healey resigns. The Prime Minister is quoted as saying the situation is under control. The situation is not under control. The word control is doing a tremendous amount of heavy lifting in that sentence. Nobody is actually steering the vessel. We are just drifting in current. Drifting.
Alastair, look at the incentives here. When the repository is archived, the value is locked. The investors can't liquidate, but they can't lose any more capital either. It is a stalemate disguised as a failure. You see this as a tragedy because you still believe there is a goal to be reached. There is no goal. The goal is the transaction itself. The resignation of a defense secretary is just a reallocation of human resources. The new guy will come in, he will read the same briefings, and he will make the same mistakes, only with a different set of justifications. It is a closed loop. We are designing systems that are so efficient they have effectively removed the need for human input. We are becoming the legacy code. We are the bugs that need to be patched out. It is very quiet in this booth.
There was a woman in a town we will not name. She worked for a company that built the sensors now found inside the fish of distant oceans. She spent 10 years optimizing the transmission protocols that allow these devices to operate for months without human intervention. She believed she was building tools for environmental preservation. She was told the data was being used to track migration patterns to prevent extinction. She was proud of her contribution. Last week, she saw the news from the Ministry of State Security. She saw the images of the sensors she helped design being used for geopolitical surveillance. She tried to delete the project files from her home computer. They were already gone. Replaced by a system update she did not authorize. She is sitting in her kitchen now. She is wondering if the device in her own phone is listening. Her name is nowhere on the record.